Hello everybody, look at this, look at how pretty it is. Oh, I got a new phone, so I thought it could switch around. Today we're going to read Evelyn Underhill's book, but I got to show you the ocean first. Mysticism, Studying the Nature and Development of Spiritual Consciousness. It's such a beautiful day. It's like, it's been raining here forever. All right, let me grab my keys. Maybe I can sit on the grass. I wasn't planning to do that, but all right, so welcome. If you're on the podcast, then just deal for a second. It's just so pretty, right? All right, so I'll just let you know now. Evelyn Underhill was a Christian mystic, and she studied a lot of this, and she influenced C.S. Lewis. So this book was written in 1911, and so it's free copyright. I was just going to read it for myself, and then I decided to share it, and it's like 55 hours later of reading this book. All right, and so I already found the next one came by intuition and everything. It kept coming through all these different means. Like I found a bookmark from a receipt from like 12 years ago when I bought this book a different time in one of my other books, but I had already saw this book on my shelf. So the next book is At the Back of the North Wind by George MacDonald, and it totally teaches you how to have your spiritual path, how to know God. I can't even find where oh, there are my keys. Oh, I have a chair. All right, but I don't have headphones for this new phone because my plug-in headphones won't work. All right, so we are talking about the Unitive Life in this chapter. We're talking about how to know God in this different way, in this unified way. Like basically, let's see if we can do this. I have to sit backwards. There we go. Whatever. All right. The last chapter was the Dark Night of the Soul. Let's lock my car, even though I'm sitting right in front of it. Oh, okay. So, all right, this totally works. I wasn't planning this. Clearly. All right, I hope you just fast forwarded through this part or just sit through it. It's sometimes fun. All right, I want you to see the ocean. That way, I'm going to be dark, but that's okay. All right. So the last chapter was Dark Night of the Soul. This part is on the Unitive Life, and it's talking about union with God and coming back together in the oneness. And today I kept thinking of that Plato quote again that I often say. Is Plato said, all learning is just remembering. And so this is a kind of remembering where our soul came from. Our soul came from this place. And it has I wouldn't be doing this reading unless my own soul had a memory of this. And I know yours does, or you wouldn't be drawn to it as well. All right, sometimes when there's people, I move the camera over so that they're not in the shot. All right, so here we go. I confess, she says again, that I do not understand the risen and deified state of certain persons who remain, in spite of it, all their lives long in a state of impotence and deprivation. For here the soul resumes a veritable life. The acts of a risen man are vital acts. And if the soul after her resurrection remains without life, I say that she is dead or buried, but not risen. To be risen, the soul should be capable of all of the acts which she performed before the time of her losses, and perform them without difficulty, since she performs them in God. All right, so this is from I have a link to the book in my description, so you can go see where all the footnotes are if you want. I'm not going to go into them today unless they're totally relevant. Look at the ocean. Like, how can we not be in this? Look at the sun. Now, if you're not looking, if you're just listening, then like go on with whatever you're doing and just know that other people get to look at the ocean today. I grew up in Texas, so now I'm in California, and every time I get a chance to come out here now, I just do. For years, I never did unless my friends from Chicago were visiting. So now I'm just in love with nature because I see it as an expression of God that my life was way too quick for it before. I was in grad school and all that stuff. I hope it's not too windy. All right. I don't know what button I pushed, but it went off for a second. All right. So let's go back. Here's the next paragraph. This new, intense, and veritable life has other and even more vital characteristics than those which led to the performance of acts or the incessant production of work. It says work twice. That wasn't me. It is in actual sense, as Richard of St. Victor reminded us, fertile, creative, as well as merely active. In the fourth degree of love, the soul brings forth its children. It is the agent of a fresh outbirth of spiritual vitality into the world, the helpmate of the transcendent order, the mother of a spiritual progeny. The great unitive mystics are each of them the founders of spiritual families, centers wherefrom radiates new transcendental life. Okay, and so this is just saying, sometimes I translate this, is that, like, you know, St. Francis created the San Franciscans, St. Dominic created the Dominicans, and then some of those spiritual families fought each other because they got away from the first essence of what was taught by the original person that it was inspired by. You know, they lost the spirit of it. This happens a lot, is amazing groups and stuff that they develop a character and they're wonderful and people trust them, and then they get co-opted by other people. My older brother has talked to me about this a number of times by lots of different organizations that all started well, you know. I don't know how the Knights Templar went or something like that, or I don't know if they stayed good, but it's just, that's what's coming to my mind. I don't know why. I just trust what comes to me. And so, but there are a bunch of mystics, and let's just say the good part, like even Tolkien. I love Tolkien so much, and C.S. Lewis, and so there's even groups that came out of that. Like I took a class on C.S. Lewis 5 times. All right, and so it doesn't matter about me. I'm just saying, like, there are so many people that have grown up. Like the seed was sown by these mystics, and like people that studied Suso, I just learned, studied Meister Eckhart. No wonder I wanted to study Suso so much. I love Meister Eckhart. I love that guy. 1300s German mystic theologian, and he was a Dominican, I found out. Okay, so all right, if this is too loud for you right now, the wind, because I can't tell, then just know that I plan to go in my car in about 10 minutes, and we'll move to there, and it'll be really quiet. So watch the ocean while you can, because we'll be missing this. Well, I mean, we'll get other... Anyway, so the great unitive mystics are each of them the founders of spiritual families, centers wherefrom radiates new transcendental life. The flowing light of the Godhead is focused in them as in a lens, only that it may pass through them to spread out on every side. The flowing light of the Godhead was actually Matilda Magdeburg's, the name of her book that came to her. But she's just Evelyn Underhill, it sounds like she's just describing what comes through. It's like C.S. Lewis said, right? He said that we think it's in these songs or whatever. We think it's this ocean or the sun on the ocean or this beautiful day. But it's really what came through. What came through this was this love. It's agape. It's this divine love. And so it's he says, when you go to the song or you go to the piece of art or you go back to that memory or whatever, you go back to the person, and it's like the word Singschwitz, and I can't say it in German, but it's this mystic longing. It's such an amazing word. I like that word in Gelassenheit. But anyway, when you go back, you notice that it's like in Portuguese it's called saudade, and it's like this bittersweet longing. And when you go back to that thing, you see it wasn't that thing. It just came through that thing. And the thing, I'll start crying. It's like this longing that your soul wakes up to. Anyway, it's the most beautiful concept. And it used to be on Wikipedia, and then someone under Gelassenheit, under Singschwitz. I don't know how to spell that. I don't know. So maybe someone can put in the comments. But then people messed with the Wikipedia, and I screen captured it at some point. But I wish I have this longing about the old definition that used to be on Wikipedia that's not there anymore. I can't believe it, for the same word, right? Okay, so anyway. So she's saying the flowing light of the Godhead is focused in them as in a lens, only that it may pass through them to spread out on every side. So too the great creative seers and artists are the parents, not merely of their own immediate works, but also of whole schools of art, whole groups of persons who acquire or inherit their vision of beauty or truth. Right? I was just thinking of that quote today. Is Dostoevsky said, in the end, the world will be saved by beauty. Right? By beauty. Because even the gospel is beautiful. It's so beautiful. How beautiful are the feet, even the feet of those who bring good news, proclaiming peace and happiness. It's true happiness. It instills happiness, true happiness. Like Boethius talks about, not happiness that can be taken away. All right, I'll try to hold it this way so that it blocks some of the wind. Or inherit their vision of beauty or truth. Thus, within the area of influence of Paul, of like St. Paul, I guess, and St. Francis. See, she mentions St. Francis. Or St. Ignatius. Both St. Ignatiuses, but of Loyola, he got a vision from Mary how to enter into the Holy Scripture by using all 5 of your senses and sitting there for an hour or whatever for a time and asking Jesus questions as if you're there. It's incredible. I've been doing it for over 7 years now. And St. Teresa of Avila, right? An atmosphere of reality is created, and new and vital spiritual personalities gradually appear. They meet for the work which these great founders set in hand. The real witness to St. Paul's ecstatic life in God is the train of Christian churches by which his journeyings are marked. Wherever St. Francis passed, she said Francis, so I added the saint, sorry. Wherever Francis passed, he left Franciscans, quote, fragrant with a wondrous aspect, end quote. Where none had been before, like no one had that fragrant, wondrous aspect that he brought. He brought that. That's why all those statues in people's gardens have the animals coming by him, because they did. I read the story of how he froze one night. And God had a bear sent to him, and I totally believe stuff like this for sure. And it unfrosted him, and I was telling someone this story, and this same person, this random person that I just had the inclination to tell that story to, it was like last week, right, was telling me, oh, I read this article. I don't even know if this person's a Christian, but she was saying, it was a she, that she read this article where this woman did freeze to death, not to death, she froze. And she was just so cold. She was on the porch of her friend's house, and her friend opened the door in the morning and saw her and called an ambulance right away. And they didn't have packs. They didn't have like the new technology to warm her. And so they warmed her with just blankets and warm water bottles. And she unfroze. And they said it's very rare, but they showed it all in this article that this person read. So it's totally possible, and it verified what I already believed about St. Francis. But what kind of man is this? This wild man who took a vow of poverty and owned nothing. He would take nothing from people, and he lived in this cave, and he just was so surrendered to God that, like, whether he dies of freezing, whatever, he entrusts himself to God, and he didn't, because God had more purposes for him on this earth. So it says, a fragrant with a wondrous aspect, where none had been before, the friends of God spring up, individual mystics here and there through the Rhineland and Bavaria. Each becomes the center of an ever-widening circle of transcendent life, the parent of a spiritual family. They are come like their master, that men may have life more abundantly, right? That all of us, she means mankind when she says men, the humans, that we may all have. Jesus said, I came to give you life and life abundantly, all right? And so all of these mystics open us up to that. They wake us up to that. They offer us that. They give it to us. And it's through arduous pain. I was just talking to another person today who talked to me of a spiritual journey. I might have him on my YouTube channel soon. And it's tremendous, but he describes it so well, because he's very scientific about what he's saying about it. And I won't say more. He found me through these videos right here on Mysticism by Evelyn Underhill. All right, so each became the center of an ever-widening circle of transcendent life, the parent of a spiritual family. They are come, like their masters, that man may have life more abundantly, mankind, right? From them, new mystic energy is actually born into the world. Again, Ignatius leaves Manresa, a solitary, maimed, ignorant, and poor. He comes to Rome with his company already formed, and ablaze with his spirit, veritably his children, begotten of him, part and parcel of his life. Okay, I could go into that, but I won't. Saint Ignatius was maimed in battle. He was a soldier before, and he dreamed of living in the court with royalty. And then the only thing he had in his convalescence, I won't go into it more than this, but was a book about the saints. And so he turned all of this heroic desire that he had in him, that God had put in his heart, right? Because we all are given gifts, and God knew where that would lead, and it didn't have to. He had a free choice, but it led to him pursuing this massive life of a saint, and like so much. I mean, my whole life has been transformed because of Saint Ignatius of Loyola, because I found a Saint Ignatius Center in Montreal, and anyway, it's a whole long journey. All right. Let me say a second more about him, or what's coming up for us is I hope you're well. Understand that, like, the blood and the sweat and the tears, like, so many people have faced death like 1,000,000 times for you to get the information from this book. So I hope that you understand this isn't just I'm breaking this down the wrong way. This isn't just, oh, let's sit here and read this fun book. It's beautiful. But I listened to this guy named Timothy Gallagher, and he was just like, listen with reverence, because he was describing how it like took a whole lifetime for some of these people to get this insight, for, I mean, because God gave it to him, but God gave it to him not just for them, for all of us, right? It's just it's how this works. But I can't emphasize really enough. I just hope people don't take this for granted and just think that it's just a given, because it's a gift. It's a gift of immense proportion. It always reminds me, the image that it reminds me of is Lucy in the Narnia books. In the first one, in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, she's given this cordial, and I don't know if it says in one of the other books, like Prince Caspian or something, because she gets it again, you know, because she comes back into Narnia. It says that, like, basically that, or some other book that I'm mixing it in, because I didn't see it last time I was reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, but it's like many people died to get this cordial, and yet it saves all these people's lives. If you put one drop, it heals them. All right. Or maybe they didn't die getting it. But it was perilous quests in order just to get this healing cordial that Aslan had given her. Well, Father Christmas gave it to her, Saint Nicholas, right? In the first Narnia book. Okay. Now it's all quiet and more private. When I was reading this commentary from the 1100s that I totally recommend, but it's not for everybody, it's Blessed Theophylact. I think I was reading this in the book of John, maybe chapter 5. I'm on 5 or 6 now, but he was saying, yeah, it was Jesus multiplying the fish, and he said Jesus would go up on a mountain, because when you're going to teach these lofty things, it's important you go to a private high place, right? And I usually hike onto the top of the mountain, or this feels like a high place here, right? Look at that ocean again. And also because it says oftentimes, and it's talking for real and it's talking symbolic, that people left the town, they left the city. And so sometimes you really have to leave the noise of the city in order to get in this quiet place. You have to turn off all of that other stuff and only listen to these videos. I'm kidding. Go where God calls you, but you have to learn to fast. You don't have to, but if you want to connect with God and go into the secret place that they talk about in Psalm 91, then you need to be able to. The only way to do that is to cut out all these other voices that are always trying to get you caught up and hooked in and on a loop, and not resting in this beautiful place. I got that in my intuition on the way here. He's just like, just sit and relax and read the book. And it just made my heart so happy. I'm going through it right now with something else. And so I have all these people praying for me. So it's getting me in the state where, like, I feel Jesus with me every moment right now. And it's like, you don't realize how important your prayers are. Because I was facing a significant loss in this earthly realm, the possibility of one. And now I'm like, I don't care. Like, whatever God wants. Kind of like St. Francis showed for us. Like, he lived that. Because he lived that, it's in our collective consciousness. Because he lived that and he was courageous, that courage gets to transfer to us. Like, we live in, if you understand, when the Holy Spirit indwells in you, you become one member in this corporate body of all those who are Christ followers, and we're not going to know. We don't know all of who that was in the past. Some are hidden, some are known, and so you're a part of that. So Bob Marley, 6 months before he passed away, God rest his soul, I love him so much, he became Ethiopian Orthodox Christian. He was baptized and everything. And so, I have very high hopes that he's definitely in heaven, and I get inspired by him all the time, just not because you're not meant to go seek out the dead. So I won't go into that, but it's just like, because he's in the community of the saints. And at our church, we pray for those who've passed away. And so sometimes I get to pray for Bob Marley when I remember. And his family here, right? Lauryn Hill has all his grandchildren with Rohan. Anyway, I won't get into all I don't mean to gossip. It's just like a beautiful, beautiful thing. All right. Oh, hold on. This person's exercising. Oh, it's a guy. Guys don't care. I'm like, if it was a woman, I'd be like, wait a second. I moved. Anyway. Usually they don't care. They're just like, hey. I mean, in my experience, I'm not trying to generalize. Let's go back to the book. So now she's talking about St. Teresa of Avila. Teresa finds the order of Mount Carmel hopelessly corrupt. It became corrupted. All its friars and nuns blind to reality, indifferent to the obligations of the cloistered life. She is moved by the Spirit, with a capital S, the Holy Spirit, to leave her convent and begin in abject poverty the foundation of new houses, where the most austere and exalted life of contemplation shall be led. She enters upon this task to the accompaniment of an almost universal mockery, right? And it says that in the New Testament that they mocked Jesus when he was about Talitha Komi, right? When he went to the woman, the woman who had been bleeding for 13 years, touched the hem of his garment and she was healed. And then he healed a 13-year-old woman, a girl, right? Because her father was with him traveling to go to the girl. And so my commentary says that it's because he wanted to ennoble the father so that he would trust that his daughter was going to be healed because she was dead. And Jesus brought her back to life. But he saw this woman who had been bleeding for 13 years. And it just interesting that anyway. And so, but it says, Jesus said to the mourners, there were all these mourners, you don't need to mourn. She's just sleeping. And they mocked him, it says. It's a really good passage to meditate on when you felt mocked by people in the church and misunderstood by people outside of it and in it, and all of those things. That's a good passage, because there's a passage in Romans where St. Paul says Jesus fulfilled this prophecy from the Old Testament. I think Isaiah or somewhere, I don't know, but it says, the reproaches of them who have reproached you have fallen upon me. And so Christ can take all those reproaches because you're not meant to carry them. They're not yours. And so if you notice the last 4 hours of this, or 5, or even before that, I had to take a long pause because I was knocked out for a little while, because I took a big blow from people that I looked up to, and I had to go with it through God. And I'm glad we were reading The Dark Night of the Soul when I was coming out of it. And so awesome when he just lifts you back up again after that. But you got to go through it. The only way around is through, right? Who said that? Mark Twain and a guy named Todd Rundgren. Is that the name of that? I was born after his era, but he wrote a song, and I heard it at a rave, so it was all fast, but it was light of the world, shine on me. Love is the answer. But he says, if there was a shortcut, I'd have found it. But there's no easy way around it. So all right. I don't know how to use this. I mean, this new camera phone. It just started again. Anyway, I know I was talking about this song by Todd. All right. So, you have to go through this. You have to go through this. And that's why I'm putting all these videos out for us, and the podcast as well. Because when we read of other saints that have gone through this, we know that it's possible because they've shown that it's possible. So she enters upon this task to accompaniment of an almost universal mockery. St. Teresa of Avila, right? Of Avila. Mysteriously, as she proceeds, novices of the spiritual life appear and cluster around her. They come into existence, one knows not how, in the least favorable of atmospheres, but one and all are salted with the Teresian salt, right? Have salt in your life. Be salty. They receive the infection of her abundant vitality, embrace eagerly and joyously the heroic life of the reform. In the end, every city in Spain has within it Teresa's spiritual children, a whole order of contemplatives, as truly born of her as if they were indeed her sons and daughters in the flesh, right? Well might the spiritual alchemist say that the true lapis philosophorum is a tinging stone, a tanging stone maybe, which imparts its goldness to the base metals brought within its sphere of influence. And so I know what she's describing because I see it in my mind's eye, in my inner vision. There's a really good Stevie Wonder song called Inner Vision that talks about your inner vision. And of course, he's blind. I got to see him the other day live. He just showed up at this other concert I was at. I was at a conference that my friends got me a ticket to at the Anaheim Convention Center. But anyway, and Stevie Wonder is up. But so she's talking about, the spiritual alchemy of turning lead into gold. This is what Christ is doing. This is what the Holy Spirit is doing in all of us, right? Jesus was the God-man and showed us gold, a life of gold, a golden life. And there's a song that goes, "You're so golden." Anyway, I won't say. I will say, I guess. That's by Harry Styles. But it's just because these songs come to me mystically. I didn't even know that song, but I was making a reel somewhere and they suggested it. And I'm like, this is it. Right? So I have a skating reel with it if you want to see my roller skating. It's SK and then the number 8, being, because I'm just being on my skates. And so that's just another way I inspire people is through mystic skating, right? Roller skating in a mystic way. I don't know where the golden one is. I don't think I labeled it. So just have at looking at those. Those are just teaching you, oh, look, here's the blind man that comes around here. Right when I'm talking about Stevie Wonder. I don't know if you can see him. I don't think he'll mind. They're so friendly around here. I mean, I didn't show his face or anything, but he's being led and he walks in this beautiful nature. Anyway, so the spiritual alchemists talk about turning lead into gold, and it's not like people are like, oh, I want that thing. And there's part of it in The Voyage of the Dawn Treader in C.S. Lewis's book. He's hinting on this myth. Well, you call it a myth, but it's a reality because that's what's happening to us. All right. I'll just leave it a mystery for you. But she's talking about this. So in a way, like that's what St. Teresa of Avila was. She turned all these nuns that came and men monks, right, who found her into these contemplatives that changed the world. It's like if everyone is a little light and it's first, just John 1:9. John 1:9 says, Christ is the light that is in all human beings that came into this earth. And we are that. So we are that. But some of us can be lit up more. All of us are meant to be. Saint Teresa of Calcutta, Mother Teresa said, I think they made her a saint. Yeah. Mother Teresa said that we're all called to be saints. It's in the Bible as well. And so we're all meant to be lit up. Jesus said that. He said, you are the light of the world. And he says, I am the light of the world. And this light's not meant to be hidden like a city on a hilltop. There's a city right here on this hilltop. You can't really tell we're on the top of the hill and then the ocean's below. It's not meant to be hidden. That's what you are. All right. This reproductive power is one of the greatest marks of the theopathetic life. It's not pathetic, but theopathic. Wait, theopathic, pathetic. I don't know what that means, but we can guess, right? The true, quote, mystic marriage of the individual soul with its source, with a capital S, God, right? Those rare personalities in whom it is found are the media through which that triumphing spiritual life, which is the essence of reality, forces an entrance into the temporal order and begets children, heirs of the superabundant vitality of the transcendental universe. All right, these are high spiritual things happening, and it just looks like, some person with a polka dot dress teaching about mystic saints, right? That's what it just looks like on the surface. But all of us are like this. C.S. Lewis says in Mere Christianity, you're all meant to be little Christ, everybody in the whole world, right? So let's light it up, rise up. I'm so glad to share this good mood with you today. I'm like, sorry I had all the dark night of the soul moods during that. It just is what it is. You gotta just go with what is. I kept showing up, keep showing up no matter what, y'all. I'm going to read that part again. Those rare personalities, rare, it's very rare, I guess. But it doesn't have to be rare. Maybe it won't be because we're heading towards closer to the end times. In my church, they said that, and I didn't know this growing up. This is a different church that I'm in now, but they said the end times is right after Christ ascended, or right when he rose from the dead was the beginning of the end times. So I'm like, oh, we've been in the end times for 2,000 years now. So it's kind of a relief, because then you're not. My dad wrote a book on the end times, and like one of those rapture books that was really frightening. I mean, I don't know if his was. I don't think I read it, but he told me about it. Those rare personalities in whom it is found are the media. This is 1911. She's talking about media. So this is before like there was all the media that we have, through which that triumphing spiritual life, with all those are capitals, triumphing is capital, spiritual and life is capitals, which is the essence of reality, forces an entrance into the temporal order and begets children, heirs of the superabundant vitality of the transcendental universe. That's a really cool sentence. But the unitive life is more than the sum total of its symptoms, more than the heroic and apostolic life of the great active, more than the divine motherhood of new sons of the absolute. These are only its outward signs, its expressions in time and space. I have first laid stress upon that expression because it is the side which all critics and some friends of the mystics persistently ignore. The contemplative's power of living, this intense and creative life within the temporal order, however, is tightly bound up with that other life in which he or she, right? This is she writing this, but attains to complete communion with the absolute order and submits to the inflow of its supernal vitality, right? It's like this continuous surrendering to this vitality of God. The life of God is flowing through you, right? Like in this strong current, because you went to God. And you know what? I was reading a book yesterday by this guy named Kevin Zadai, and he said like Jesus showed up. I don't know how he showed up, so I won't go into that, but right in front of him, like 3 feet away from him. And immediately, when he was in college, so he was young, right? Immediately when that happened, he's like, I immediately started crying and confessing every sin I'd ever committed. He's like, because the presence of Jesus was so strong that it just makes you want to confess everything, because all of that is what's getting in the way of you and this intimate relationship with God. And so you're like, take it all, right? If you've been with me through all these videos, then you know, remember that one video we did and it was like, no more sin, please God, no more sin. Because we don't want that separation anymore from God. We don't want that. I don't want my phone to overheat. All right. See, it's like we have these mystic truths and then I talk about this silly practical thing, but it's life that we're dealing with. We'll deal with it, right? But this unitive life is more than the sum total of its symptoms, more than the heroic and apostolic life of the great active, more than the divine motherhood of new, quote, sons of the absolute, end quote. These are only its outward signs, its expression in time and space. I have first laid stress upon that expression because it is the side which all critics and some friends of the mystics persistently ignore. The contemplative's power of living, this intense and creative life, I read this, I know, but it's so worth repeating. Within the temporal order, however, is tightly bound up with that other life in which he attains to complete communion with the absolute order and submits to the inflow of its supernal vitality. In discussing the contributions of the mystical experience to the theories of absolutism and vitalism, we saw that the complete mystic consciousness, and therefore, of course, the complete mystic world, had a twofold character. It embraced, we perceived, a reality which seems, from the human standpoint, at once static and dynamic, transcendent and immanent, eternal and temporal, accepted both the absolute world of pure being and the unresting world of becoming as integral parts of its vision of truth, demanding on its side a dual response. And that's what I was just talking about with the phone and this ocean that's in front of me, this expansive ocean. All through the mystic way, we caught glimpses of the growth and exercise of this dual intuition of the real. Oh, I have an idea. Okay. Now, the mature mystic, having come to his full stature, look at how God does this, right? It's like, because my phone was getting too hot, I can turn this around and show us the ocean again. Let's see. I have such a longing for it, for us, right? I'm going to be a little in the dark, but so you guys can see the ocean. We saw the complete mystic consciousness, and therefore, of course, the complete mystic world had a twofold character. Let's see. It embraced, pure being. Let me go back. It embraced, we perceive, a reality which seems, from the human standpoint, at once static and dynamic, transcendent and immanent, eternal and temporal, accepted both the absolute world of pure being and the unresting world of becoming as integral parts of its vision of truth, demanding on its side a dual response. Although the mystic way was caught, all through the mystic way, we caught glimpses of the growth and exercise of this dual intention of the real. Now the mature mystic, having come to his full stature, passed through the purifications of sense and of will and entered on his heritage, must and does take up as a part of that heritage not merely a fruition of the divine goodness, truth, and beauty, his place within the sempiternal rose, nor B, the creative activity of an agent of the eternal wisdom still immersed in the river of life, but both together the twofold destiny of the spiritual world. To use the scholastic language, he is at once patient and agent. Patient as regards God, agent as regards man, right? Jesus showed us the spiritual and the temporal, the divine and the human. He was both. Fully man and fully God. And so he showed us how to wake up the God in us. Saint Athanasius wrote that for us, right? I've quoted it many times. It says, God became man so that man could become God. We're meant to be Godified. It's called theosis and all sorts of stuff like that. What is that person doing? Hopefully they're waving at their friend. He waved. Anyway, I won't say. Anyway. Hopefully, I don't think he was in my video. I'm so cautious about people not being in my video that don't want to be in it. In a deep sense, this is where we are. It may be said of him that he now participates according to his measure in the divine human life. which mediates between man and the eternal and constitutes the salvation of the world. Therefore, through his outward heroic life of action, his divine fecundity, Therefore, though his outward heroic life of action, his divine fecundity, may seem to us the best evidence of his state, it is the inner knowledge of his mystical sonship, the mysterious peace of dwelling in activity, says Roysebrook, which is for him the guarantee of absolute life. He has many ways of describing this central fact, this peculiar consciousness of his own transcendence, which coexists with and depends on a complete humility. Sometimes he says that whereas in the best moments of his natural life, he was but the faithful servant of the eternal order, and in the illuminated way became its, quote, secret friend. He is now advanced to the final, most mysterious state of hidden child. There's an unreleased song of my friend. I was friends with this musician named Elliott Smith, and one of his songs, he has this lyric. It says, acting under orders from above. And he says, I'm here at my station. That's not the unreleased one. This is the unreleased one. I'm mixing two songs. I'm here at my station all night, so come on by if you feel like, right? It's like, he knows he's acting under these higher orders. I mean, it's called Dancing on the Highway. So it's talking about this high path. If you want to find it, it's at, I've kept it for years now on my Twitter or X, Dr. Cheryl M is my handle there, and it's penned at the top. It's a really beautiful, mystical song, and I made clips of it. What came to me through visions, because I didn't hear it till after he died, and I was just bawling my eyes out because it reminded me of conversations we had and just time spent with each other and just these deep, high philosophical concepts. And I just was wishing he was alive, but hopefully he's in that great cloud of the saints as well. Therefore, though his outward heroic life of action, his divine fecundity, may seem to us the best evidence of his state, it is the inner knowledge of his mystical sonship, the mysterious peace dwelling in activity, dwelling within this activity, right? You have this peace that passes all understanding. He says in that song, look at what I can do with empty time, right? Because he was on the Oscars and like millions and millions of people watched him. And anyway, the mysterious peace dwelling in activity, says Roysebrook, which is for him the guarantee of absolute life. He has many ways of describing this central fact, this peculiar consciousness of his own transcendence, which coexists with and depends on a complete humility. Sometimes he says that whereas in the best moments of his natural life, he was but the faithful servant of the eternal order, and in that illuminated way became its secret friend. He is now advanced to the final, most mysterious state of hidden child, right? It's so cool. I think maybe they were hinting at it when they had flower children or something. I wasn't around then in the 60s. How great, says Roysebrook, is the difference between the secret friend and the hidden child. The first makes lively, impassioned, but measured ascents towards God, right? The secret friend of God does that. But the second, this hidden child, presses on to lose his own life upon the summits, right? In the high places, in that simplicity which knoweth not itself. It is then that, caught up above all things by the sublime ardors of a stripped and naked spirit, we feel within ourselves the certitude and the perfection of the children of God, and obtain the immediate contact of the divine, because we are immersed in the nothingness. Eliot has a song called Everything Means Nothing to Me, and it's all talking about that nothingness. I wonder why he's coming up, but whatever. He lived this mystic life. Like, that's why we were drawn to each other and had this deep, instant connection the second we met. But anyway, I thought it was because we both grew up in Dallas, around Dallas in Texas, and we both had psychiatrists as fathers. Because your logical mind just tries to make sense of why these connections are so intense. Anyway. Though the outer career of the great mystic then be one of superhuman industry, a long fight with evil and adversity, his real and inner life dwells securely upon the heights, in the perfect fruition, which he can only suggest to us by the paradoxical symbols of ignorance and emptiness. He dominates existence because he thus transcends it, is a son of God, a member of the eternal order, shares its substantial life, tranquility according to his essence, with a capital H, so God's essence, activity according to his nature, God's nature, absolute repose, absolute fecundity. This, says Roysbrook, again, is the twofold property of God. And the secret child of the absolute participates in this dual character of reality. For this dignity has man been made. For this dignity has man been made. For this dignity have we been made. We've been made because of this. Those two aspects of truth, which he has so clumsily classified as static and dynamic, it's like the yin and the yang, or Mary and Martha represent this as being and becoming. I added that part, but she's saying being and becoming, like this just being and then this activity of becoming. You're both. Because linear time is not really real, but it appears real to us. They now find their final reconciliation within its own nature, for that nature has become conscious in all its parts, has unified itself about its highest elements. That strange, tormenting vision of a perfect peace, a joyous self-loss, annihilation in some mighty life, with a capital L, right? That overpassed his own, which haunts man throughout the whole course of his history, and finds a more or less distorted expression in all his creeds, a justification in all his ecstasies, is now traced to its source, and found to be the inevitable expression of an instinct by which he recognized, though he could not attain, the noblest part of his inheritance. This recognition of his has, of necessity, been imperfect and oblique. It has taken in many temperaments in exaggerated form. It has been further disguised by the symbolic language and used to describe it. The tendency of Indian mysticism to regard the unitive life wholly in its passive aspect as a total self-annihilation, right? This is people from India. A disappearance into the substance of the Godhood results, I believe, from such a one-sided distortion of truth that they're only looking at the being aspect, that they're not, I'm describing what she's saying, is that they're not looking at the becoming and the being, and God shows both. And so they are speaking a truth, but it's like an exaggerated truth because they're only looking at that one side. She'll explain it. From one side, a distortion of the truth. The Oriental mystic presses on to lose his life upon the heights, but he does not come back from the grave. And bring to his fellow men the life-giving news that he has transcended mortality in the interests of the race. The temperamental bias of Western mystics toward activity has saved them, as a rule, from such one-sided achievement as this. And hence, it is in them that the unitive life, with its dual character of activity and rest, right? Action and inaction, or action within the action. I think there's a word called Wu Wei that's saying this, it's describing it's a word that describes the same thing. Dual character of activity and rest has assumed its richest and its noblest forms. Of all these Western mystics, none has expressed more lucidly or more splendidly than Ruysbroeck, Ruysbroeck, if you want to know how his name is spelled. The double nature of man's reaction to reality. It is the heart of his vision of truth. In all his books, he returns to it again and again, speaking as none familiar with his writings can doubt, the ardent joys, vital language of first-hand experience, not the platitudes of philosophy. He might say with Dante, his forerunner, into the Empyrean, la forma universal de questo nodo, credo ch'io vidi, perché più di largo dicendo questo mi sento che godo. Okay, there's my chopped Italiano. And here it is. Okay, she translated it for us. Sometimes she doesn't. It's in the notes, right? It says, I believe that I beheld the universal form of this not, because in saying this, I feel my joy increased. I think that's Dante. It is then from Ruysbroeck that I shall make my quotations, and if they be found somewhat long and difficult of comprehension, their unique importance for the study of man's spiritual abilities must be my excuse. First, his vision of God. All right, I'll read one paragraph of this. The divine persons, he says, who form one sole God are in the fecundity of their nature ever active, and in the simplicity of their essence, they form the Godhead and eternal blessedness. Thus God, according to the persons, is eternal work, but according to the essence and its perpetual stillness, he is eternal rest. Now love and fruition live between this activity and this rest. Love would work without ceasing, for its nature is eternal work with God. Fruition is ever at rest, for it dwells higher than the will and the longing for the well-beloved, in the divine nescience, and that simple love where the Father together with the Son enfolds his well-beloved in the abundant unity of his spirit, above the fecundity of nature. And that same Father says to each soul in his infinite loving kindness, Thou art mine, and I am thine. I am thine, and thou art mine, for I have chosen thee from all eternity. Guess what song I was practicing today to learn for my teaching tomorrow? Give your heart and soul to me, and life will always be la vie en rose. And in Bible study this morning, they were talking about the priestly prayer of Jesus in John around chapter 14, or right after that. He was saying that I may be in them and they in us, and you in them and us together, right? In perfect unity, all right? So there's the unitive life. Jesus was praying that for all of us. I wish you so much love. Thank you for being here and for being with the adventures, right? Wherever we're looking at or being present in. I can't wait to keep reading this book. Much love.